Welcome to the EFS Modernization Project Training video series. This video covers the VPK bulk enrollment file process. For today's video, we'll start at the provider portal. This provider is a VPK provider. We'll go to Enrollments and Manage VPK Enrollments. There are two links on the menu to request or change enrollment or the bulk file upload. I want to start at the request or change enrollment just so we can see what we already have for this provider. We'll select the program year. We'll do our fall enrollments for the school year. And we have two classes, AF18 and CF18. We'll start with AF18. This class begins on August 27th, 2018 and runs through May 17, 2019. We can see the max class size is 11. This is determined by the number of instructors that are assigned to the class. Currently, there are no children assigned at all. We'll go to the Bulk VPK Enrollment tab, and you can see I've already done some file uploads, but let's start from scratch. We'll click on this link here, CSV File Template. A file template will download below. So the very first item in the file is the provider ID. The provider ID, let's minimize this, and we'll go back to our home page. I'll show you where you can find it, is right here, provider ID 9024. That's what the file is looking for. Let's go back to our file, 9024. Next is the certificate number of the child. So I have several children that have been approved for VPK enrollment. So now I want to type in the first child. I'm going to flip back to the family portal where this child is located and look at the COE. As the provider, I would have this COE in front of me because the family would have brought it to me requesting the enrollment. But I'm going to use this document to get the information that I need for the child. So here we have on the certificate of eligibility, we have the child's name, we have their program year, we have their certificate number, we have the certificate issue date, and the child's date of birth. All of these pieces are what we need for that file. So let's just start here. Certificate number. The certificate number, as you can see from the document, is exactly this number. It begins with VPK. There's a number, hyphen, dash the program year. So let's get that and put it right here. And let me make my columns a little wider too. Okay. We have on the certificate, we know the child's first name, Colossus. Don't forget, we're doing an X-Men classroom. Take this, and I'll put it right here. And the last name is Latham. And the date of birth is also on the certificate. It is right here. We can take that, copy that, and we can put it right in the file. Again, as the provider, I don't expect you to have an electronic copy of the COE, so you won't be able to copy and paste, but you will have the hard copy in front of you that the family brings. So one thing to note here, the next column is the VPK program year. On the certificate, let's go back to that view. On the certificate, the VPK program year is 2018-2019. What the file wants is 2018. It's not the full 2018-2019 program year. A good hint is also to look at the certificate number and see how it ends in 2018. That's the 4-digit program year that we want here in column F. 9 times out of 10, the last 4 of the COE number is the program year. The only time it would differ is if the child had a postponement, meaning the child's family applied for VPK, they were assigned a certificate number for, let's say, 2018-19, and then later decided to postpone to 2019-20. In that case, their program year would be 2019, but their COE would still remain with 2018 because that COE number that was initially assigned to them is not going to change. So 9 times out of 10, the last 4 of that COE number is also the program year. Our next column is class ID. What class do we want to put the child in? Let's go back to our provider view. We'll go back to enrollments, request change. This is for the 18-19 program year. We want to do our school year class, and we said we want to put it in AF18 into the X-Men class. So let's see here, that's AF18. That is what the file wants. Not the whole name, but the ID dash name, just the ID, AF18. And now the child's anticipated start date. Let's flip back there real quick. This class begins on 8/27/2018, and we'll use that for this child's start date, 8/27/2018. The last column in the file, column I, says MSID. MSID is short for the Master School Identification File. This is only relevant to public schools or public charter schools. The format for public schools, the first two numbers or the first two digits are the district number, hyphen, and the last four digits are the school number. If you are a private provider, you absolutely do not fill this column out. This is only for public schools, and it's not required either for public schools. Public schools can enter the provider ID or the MSID number. But for regular providers, you will enter the provider ID as you do not have an MSID number. Okay, so this is what the completed file would look like. Let me go ahead and save this. I'm going to do File, Save As. I'm going to put it on the desktop here. I want to make sure this saves as a CSV. So if it does not default to CSV, you want to go ahead and change that. So we'll call this X-Men Fall Class 1 because I have one child in it, but that's just for my reference. And I have it saved. There's a little pop-up that says some features in your workbook might be lost if you saved a CSV. That's because when it initially opened, it was a TXT file. We want to go ahead and say yes. This is a typical warning that you get, a difference between TXT and CSV. Don't worry about it. Just click yes that you want to save it. And now we have our file. Also important to note, the same rules apply as if you were doing the enrollment manually through the provider portal. So here where you put in the certificate number, the child's first name, the last name, and the date of birth, the certificate number has to be approved for that program year. The session can be different, but that COE number has to match the program year. The child's first name and last name have to be included. The date of birth has to be included and match as well. The class has to be approved, AF18. The COE issue date, so in this case, let's go back to that COE issue date, 6/18/2018. I can't put in an anticipated start date prior to that certificate issue date. For example, if this was a fall class and the fall class starts on August 15th and the COE wasn't approved until August 18th, I can't put the class start date as the anticipated start date for the child because of the COE issue date validation. The earliest I could put the start date is 6/18 because that's a COE issue date. However, for this purpose, there's no reason to use 6/18 because it's a fall class. The child is going to start when the class starts, and the class start date was in August. So that's why we have that in the file. We have 8/27 as the start date, not today's date, not the COE issue date. It's the date the child is going to start in that class for fall enrollment, the beginning of the class. The other validations that take place, the class size cannot be exceeded in that file. If you assign more than the max class size, there will be an error. If it's the wrong year, there'll be an error. If the class isn't approved, there'll be an error. If the child demographics don't match, there's going to be an error. So the same validations that take place as if you were doing it manually are going to be operational with the bulk upload. So I know I completed the one row, but let me go ahead and show you a more complete file before we upload it so I can get some of these validations triggered for you. So I made a file earlier. Let me close this one. I want to save it. It does ask you a couple times if you want to save, and you just keep saying yes. That's fine. Do you want to keep using this format? Yes. I want to go to the other file that I created. In here, you can see that I've got 13 children, and everything in here is correct. So let me just make some things incorrect. I'm going to say that this child, Cyclops, that's approved for 2018, I want to put him in, let's say, 2019. And this child, I'm going to put in not AF18, but I'm going to put it in GF 2018. And this anticipated start date, I'm going to say is before the issue date. I'm going to say is 15/2018. Not only is it before the COE issue date, it's even before the class start date. So that's definitely going to give us an error. Here I have a file of children. They're all going to this one provider. They have the COE number, as you see on the certificate, their first name and last name, as you see on the certificate, their date of birth. The column here, the header, has month, day, year. The file will accept a single digit for September, for example. The VPK program year, we have a single digit or a single year, not 2018-2019. We have our class ID, just the ID, not AF18- a class name. And we have the anticipated start date, which is, for this particular case, the start date of the class. These fall enrollments, these children are going to start when the class starts, and that's what that is. And again, this provider is not a public school, so we're not going to enter the MSID. That is not required for anybody first, but it's certainly only for the public school use. A private provider is never going to use this MSID column. So I've got my data in here. I've got some things that are incorrect. I'm going to go ahead and save. It's going to ask me all these questions. Do I want to keep using this format? Yes, I do. All right, and I want to close. And it's going to say, do you want to save your changes? I could say don't save because I know I just saved, but I'm just going to hit save. It comes up again. It's got the CSV extension. That's very important. Save. Do you want to replace it? Yes, I do. Do you want to keep using this format? Yes, I do. Okay, it's closed. I'm going to go back to my bulk enrollment tab. I've got my file. I'm going to click upload. I'm going to look for my file. It's this one right here. And click open. And you can see that line got green. 13 records were in the file. It says processing. This is very important. As soon as you upload, when it's done processing, when the line is no longer green, you have to click refresh. Refresh, and now it gives you the results. We had 13 records in the file, 10 are committed, 3 records failed. The status is that the processing is complete and we have errors. What were those errors? Let's go take a look. We have to click download. It opens our file. And now this is the exact file that we had uploaded, but it has results. Let's make this so we can see a little better. Okay, these children that didn't have errors, they were submitted. They all say enrollment submitted. This one, where we changed it to 2019, it says program year is not found. This one here, where there is no such class, GF18, it says invalid class ID. This one here, where I changed the date to 6/15, which was A, before the class starts and before the COE issue date, has an error. Anticipated start date precedes the COE issue date. So that would have triggered 2 errors. The first error was caught with the anticipated start date, and the rest of the children are fine. So that's how you can tell after your file is uploaded. You click upload. When the bar is no longer green, you have to click refresh, and then it will have the results. And your results are in the download file. Even if it was 100%, no errors, like this record here, you can still click, it'll still give you the file, and you can download the file, and it'll tell you the results that this one child, Ironman, obviously in my Marvels class, is enrollment submitted. I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see that. So again, these are the columns that are in the file. Most of the data you get directly from the COE. The provider ID number you can get from the home page of the provider portal. A certificate number, child first name, last name, date of birth, and program year. Those are all going to come from that COE itself. Just remember, for program year, you just need the 4 digits that are 9 times out of 10 the same as the 4 digits on the certificate itself. If the child did have a postponement, as in the example, that would be the one reason why the year would be different. It will have that on the COE, but in that case you'd use, say, 2019. You don't want to put both 2018-2019 or 2019-2020. Just the first half of that program year is what's needed. The class ID you're going to find on the provider portal, the class that you want to enroll the child in, and the anticipated start date. Again, 9 times out of 10, it's the day the class starts. Maybe the child is coming a day later or what have you, and it's after the class starts. But it has to be on or after the class starts, and certainly on or after the COE issue date. MSID, only for public schools, not required. And then you have your status after the processing is complete. So let me just minimize this for a second. I'm going to go back over here to request change. And we know earlier we saw this class had no children. Let's go ahead and refresh 18-19 for school year, X-Men, and here they all are. So all of the children that were processed as enrollment submitted are here. Any children that had an error are not here. Those would need to be correct. So it's important after you upload to see if you had any failed records in this column here, and download the file so you can see the results. And for the children that failed, to correct the issues and re-upload, or even do them manually here through the provider portal page. So here we can see the results of our file upload. All the children that were successfully uploaded now say enrollment submitted in the class. We did have 3 errors, so let's go take care of those 3 errors. And also, I believe I'm at 10 children in this class, so one of the children I'll put in this class, and the other 2 I'll put in my other class in CF18. And CF18 is using the same start date, 8/27. This was our file that had our 3 failed records, so I'm going to go back here. Alright, so our 3 children that had errors. Let's go ahead and get rid of our ones that were already enrollment submitted. There is a check, a validation check, that if they've already been submitted, you'll get an error message that says they've already been submitted. Same as if you had done it manually, it'll say that COE is in use or the child has already been submitted. Let's go ahead and get this one out, and these 3 out. Okay. And so our 3 errors here was the program year, so we'll fix that to 2018. Invalid, what class was AF18, and anticipated start date, which should be 8/27/2018. Okay, and we're going to get rid of our error column. But I know that if I put all 3 of these children in the class, I'm going to exceed the limit. So 2 of them I want to have go to a different class. And this is also a really great example of, can one file handle multiple class assignments? And yes, it can. So these other 2, I'm going to put them in CF18. The child information didn't change. The class start date didn't change because the class is starting on the same day. We double checked that. So this file should be good to go. So let's go ahead and save as and put it on the desktop. And this will be 4. And it is a CSV And we'll click Save. Do I want to keep using the format? Yes. And I'm going to hit Close. This time I will click Don't Save, just so you see that other method does work, but don't save. Let's go ahead and get that uploaded. I'm on 4. And I've got the processing, and I'm going to go ahead and click Refresh. And I had 3 records in the file. 3 are committed, nothing failed. Great. Let's go see the results though. So I'm going to open my file. And the results are added. And it looks like all 3 of them are enrollment submitted. That's great. And I can go to the provider portal and verify this too. Let's just double check. So Cyclops is going to go to the A class, and Jubilee and Nightcrawler should be in the C class. So let's go double check. 18 school year. So we said Cyclops would be here. There he is, enrollment submitted. And then Jubilee and Nightcrawler are in the other class, and there they are. So that's how the bulk file works. You need to abide by the format of the template. Again, most information is on that COE form. The provider ID you can get from the home page of the provider portal. Certificate number, it has to match exactly. VPK number hyphen 4-digit VPK program year. Child first name, last name, their date of birth. The VPK program year is typically the last 4 digits of the certificate number. The same year that appears in the certificate number is also the VPK program year. The class ID you're going to get from the class that it's the child you want to enroll them into. Just the class ID, the 4-digit AF18, BF18, whatever that ID is, not the hyphen short nickname you may have provided the class. Like I didn't put AF18-X-Men, I just put AF18 in the file. And the anticipated start date typically would probably be your class start date. So those are the elements that you want to have in the file. We saw where you upload them. Once you have your file saved and you make sure it's a CSV, you click Upload, you get that green bar, you click Refresh, and then it tells you the results. And you can always check your results in the download, and you definitely want to do that if you have errors, so you can correct the errors. And you can also see those results in the individual classes. And now that their enrollment submitted, the same process continues. The coalition is going to have them in their work queue to review and approve. When the coalition marks the children as enrolled, there'll be additional features here on the provider portal for providers to use. We talked about that in another video. One thing that has changed since the other video we had was this Never Attended button. Previously it said remove. The feature purpose and functionality is the same. Remove this enrollment or never attended is really to remove the child if they have never attended. You want to take them off of the attendance. You're not going to seek reimbursement. You want to free up that COE so another provider can enroll that child. That's what never attended will do. There's a nice little pop-up that tells you what those things are, what they mean. If you ever want to move a child from one classroom to another classroom, you want to do that with the class change button. That button's not here right now because the child is not enrolled yet. If you wanted to end their enrollment where they were attending and you are going to seek reimbursement, but they have to leave, you want to use the terminate feature. Again, you don't have that available right now because the status is enrollment submitted. These other features come into play after they're enrolled. So if you have any questions about this, the provider portal user guide will have this in great detail. And I think that's all for this video. Thank you.